Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet.
Today's story begins with a bar in Scottsdale, moves to a party bus, and ends with a moment of realization that I didn't really see coming. Let's just say that sometimes life hands me my next podcast on a silver platter, albeit a slightly sticky silver platter, kind of like the floor of a college bar. Hey there, and welcome back to The Imperfect Prophet, a podcast for women who wonder. And I'm your host, Wonder Wendy. I hope you have your beverage and are ready to get real. Scene 1. How bad could it be? You know, it started as one of those well-intentioned Saturdays. You know the ones. You make plans because it sounds like fun, in theory. I'd invited a friend to something I thought might be cool, and she said, why not? Yeah. The meeting point was a bar in the entertainment district of Scottsdale. Now, for those of you who don't know, that area can be lively. And let's just say it's not where you go for quiet reflection and a cup of tea. And it was 11 a.m. How bad could it be? The answer, as it turns out, very, very. We walk in and the bass is already thumping so hard that there is no danger of developing kidney stones. My friend and I are shouting like people trying to communicate across a canyon. After a few minutes, our voices are raspy. We look at each other, that universal look of, oh no, have we made a terrible mistake? We decide to just get out of the building for a few minutes, get some fresh air, take a little walk around the block. The transportation will be here soon. We're going to a polo match a few miles in the north. It's all going to be different once we get on the bus, right? Scene 2. The bus. We actually hear it before we see it. The transportation, our chariot, the party bus. The windows are tinted, shades are down, and we can't see a thing. The doors open. Boom! Music hits like a wall of sound. There's a stripper pole, flashing lights, and it's filled with people who have clearly been celebrating since breakfast, maybe before. And I do mean celebrating. One girl on the bus said she hadn't slept the night prior. She actually looked pretty good considering that. Anyway, we climb aboard because, well, that's what you do. There's no turning back now, right? And it's packed, shoulder to shoulder, max capacity. Not everyone even has a seat. My friend and I mercifully are seated, crammed together, trying to remember why I thought this was a good idea. And that's when it hits me. The absurdity, the humor, the honesty of the moment. And I lean over and say to her, so, now I know what it's like to be the oldest bitch on the bus. We both lose it, laughing so hard we can barely breathe, feeling like grandmothers at a rave. Granted, we don't look like grandmothers, but everyone else seems so very young. And right there, I knew. This was it. This was the next episode you and I, dear listener, would share. Because beneath the laughter, something deeper was stirring, a mix of reflection, nostalgia, and truth. Scene 3. Were we ever like that? As the music pounded and the bus bounced along, I found myself wondering and getting a little motion sick. Were we ever like that? Did we used to be the ones singing at full volume, dancing without a care, spilling drinks and joy in equal measure? Looking to attract a mate in a ritual that rivals the bonobos monkeys in the wild? Yeah, like that. But then our rooms were smoke-filled. These kids are all cupping vape pens. Everything's so weird. I don't need a beverage to go with that one. It's just water. I'm still recovering. But the honest answer to the question, weren't we ever like that, is maybe. In our own way, at our own time. Now, we've all had our own versions of wild, some louder, some quieter. But there was a time when we were the ones who didn't care who was watching. I know my parents had moments when they wondered if I would make it into my 20s, much less my 30s. And that's the thing about aging. It's not that we stop knowing how to have fun. Well, most of us don't. It's the definition of fun that evolves. And if you've forgotten how to have fun, maybe it's time to really listen to this episode and figure out what is fun for you and what are you going to do about it. But that said, the things that once thrilled us might now just exhaust us. Are we out of shape or just lost our desire to do that? And giving something up isn't necessarily loss. It's the wisdom of knowing the difference. It's so easy to judge the noise, to think their music, boy, there's a lot of air quotes in this episode, their music is too much, to shake our heads at the chaos and call it shallow. But if I'm honest, there is something kind of beautiful about their abandon. The laughter, the freedom, the sense of being uncontained. And the truth is, this isn't new. Every generation has its "the world is going to hell in a handbasket." Yeah, that moment happens generation after generation. Ask your parents, if you've still got your parents, because they probably had that moment at least once. In the early 20th century, it was jazz. I know you probably think of that as your grandfather's music, and yet that was scandalous when it first came out. The adults were genuinely scandalized. Established society said, oh my goodness. If you want to see more examples of that, watch The Music Man. That musical is packed with early 20th century examples of the schism. Oh, and as the 20th century progressed, rock and roll and Elvis with that pulsing hip, it was supposedly the downfall of mankind. Rock and roll was evil, sin, danger. We survived it. But my generation, Madonna's black bra showing through lace in the 80s, clearly the death of morality. At least that's what adults were saying at that time. I clearly wasn't an adult back then. But it goes on and on. There's so many examples. Every few years, it's new something. So I looked around that bus and thought, maybe the music isn't too loud. Well, is it any louder than my music was? Maybe my life just has a different soundtrack. And maybe I liked the soundtrack that went with Madonna's black bra under that lace shirt. Maybe I haven't grown with the times. Maybe that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Kids want to listen to something that we don't listen to. Scene 4, The Rift. there's this strange rift that happens somewhere in midlife, not just between generations, but between versions of ourselves. We start asking, who am I now? Am I still allowed to be spontaneous? Do I still fit in there? And sometimes we land on that dreaded phrase, I'm too old for this. Now, my friend said it that day, somewhere between a laugh and a groan. And someone half our age twerked directly in front of us on the stripper pole as she said it. Then another young woman climbed up, spinning with acrobatic flair, and nearly took us out with an extended high heel and a flash of her crotch. It was almost more than we could take. I'm too old for this, my friend said. And I get it. But I also hated hearing her say it. Because when we say, I'm too old for this, what we often mean is the world has changed and left me behind. That's not the truth. I bet even when you were in high school, your friends or some of your friends or some of the people you didn't even like in high school had music that you hated, whether it was acid rock or bubblegum pop or country or disco. You either loved it or you hated it. At some point in life, we learn what fills us and what doesn't. We've learned that we don't have to force ourselves into spaces where our energy doesn't belong. It's not about being old, it's about being aware. Now, that said, when my youngest, who just turned 24, when did that happen? Anyway, when she and I would take road trips, she would curate some of her music that she thought I might like. I was often surprised to find common ground. I'd be like, I really like that song. She goes, I thought you would. Thought you would. There was also a good deal of humor as I struggled to understand that staying hydrated was not about drinking enough water. That day I learned that being thirsty, more air quotes people, is more like being free. She thought it was hysterically funny to explain this to her mom, and she really thought I didn't get it. But honestly, I didn't. She was using the English language in a way that I didn't begin to understand. And I'm sure I did the same thing to my parents at times. Probably? I don't know. So now let's move on to scene 5 and reframe these thoughts just a little bit. Maybe it's not too old. Maybe it's too wise to pretend or too staid in our ways to try new things. That may not be a good thing. Too tuned in to our own rhythm to dance to someone else's beat. And by the way, while self-confidence is fabulous, once in a while, give something new a try, as long as you don't pop a hip doing it. Now, we don't have to match the energy in the room to belong to it. Sometimes the loudest place on earth teaches us quietest truth. And that day, on the bus, with my ears ringing, I watched two worlds collide. The version of me who once thought fun meant noise and movement, and the version of me who now sometimes finds joy in stillness, in connection, in watching instead of performing. Okay, who am I kidding? I still love to rock out to my favorite music, just like my husband still loves his Elvis and the Monkees. And maybe the lesson is just that. You can love who you were and love who you've become and still evolve. You can honor that girl who might have been up there spinning on that pole, maybe, but also honor the woman who now finds wonder in the laughter of others. So now, here's the wonder moment. The thing that still makes me smile. When that bus finally stopped, it really wasn't that long, but it felt like we'd been on there for at least a few hours. And we finally stepped into the sunlight, ears ringing, a little sweaty from motion sickness. I took a deep breath and thought, I survived the party bus. Yeah. But more than that, I saw something. I saw how far I've come, how comfortable I am in my own skin, how little I need to prove to anyone anymore. Because living a wonderful life isn't about keeping up. It's about keeping true. It's about knowing when to step back, when to step up, and when to laugh your way through the noise. Sometimes the universe puts you on a party bus just to remind you you don't have to dance on the pole to be part of the party. You just have to bring your own kind of light. So what does this have to do with you? Maybe you'll never be on a party bus. Maybe you will never let yourself be in that situation. So what is there to learn? Well, I want you to never confuse quiet confidence with invisibility. Keep your sense of humor, no matter how challenging it is. And always, always make room for wonder. Now, Thanksgiving is coming, which for many of us means intergenerational gatherings. From the little ones to the tweens, to the teens, to the young adults, to the adults of all the different stages, right up to that ancient grandpa who falls asleep after eating too much turkey. I encourage you to ponder what I learned that day as you go into that intergenerational gathering. I want you to be able to check your judgment for the young and the old and find common ground to enjoy the gathering. Now, we all know sometimes the older generation says something that, well, can be perceived as offensive because they were raised in a different time. They used different language. Maybe they thought Polak jokes were cool. Maybe they don't know the appropriate words for somebody of a different color. Maybe they're still struggling with gender-neutral identities. Give them room. Help them understand. Share your struggles and learn together. And when the younger generation says something that makes you crazy, makes you wonder if they are even really using the English language that we tried to teach them, ask for clarification before you jump at them, because you might have done the same thing to your parents. So raise your glass to all the bitches, young and old. Live the wonderful bucket list life and enjoy. Let's have a little tolerance for each other. And let's remember, we might have been on a party bus once or twice too. But until next week, I look forward to hearing your stories of keeping young, keeping it real, but also knowing when it's time to take a different bus. Footnote, we called for a ride. We weren't going to get back on that bus again. We did have the experience, and we learned something. With love and wonder, I'm Wonder Wendy, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.